Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Alan Herrera, and I am here to host another episode of our Foreign Correspondents Talk YouTube series, wherein I, in my capacity as the leader of editorial operations for the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents, that's of course AFPC-USA, I have the opportunity to interview foreign correspondents and just give them the opportunity to talk about their lives and their careers, and we have a wonderful opportunity to learn more about them and just about their opinions and insights about journalism as a whole. It's always super fun for me. And today I'm very pleased to share that my guest today is Alberto Simoni, who is an Italian journalist. He is with La Stampa, one of Italy's oldest and esteemed publications. He was the chief of the foreign desk at La Stampa before moving on to Washington, and he's had a wealth of experience over his very, long and storied career. So thank you, Alberto, for being here with me. It's such a pleasure.
Thank you, Alan, for having me. I'm very honored to share my humble view with you and with all the people.
I appreciate that very much. I appreciate that. Could you tell me then, just to start, how did you get into journalism? When did you realize, oh, this is something that I want to do? How did you kick that off?
That's I could speak for an hour about that, but it's the answer in reality is very easy. I wanted to be a journalist when I was a kid. I was 6, 7, 8 years old. I guess I was in a primary school, and I was in love with soccer, as most of Italian. And I at the time I took a sort of my fist and I use it like a microphone to tell a sort of people that of course doesn't exist, tell the story of a game, of a soccer game, inventing, creative, and say, I want to be a journalist. I want to be a sportive journalist. I want to travel in all Italian stadiums in order to tell the people how the result of the matches and Juventus, this is my favorite team, and so on. So I started thinking about to tell the stories of soccer and sport. But then I remember that it was that I started falling in love with international issues and with Italian politics. And when my father usually came back from work, in the evening, he had at the time a lot of newspapers, at least 3 newspapers, 1 regional and 2 national newspaper. And I was really happy to read that the stories. And I remember I started reading it from the end of the newspaper where the sports section was at the time, and then I started reading international politics and Italian politics. So and I was very young. I said 8 years old, 8 probably. Then probably when I started and I started reading about international politics, probably was 10 or 11. But I was so happy. And I remember something that in 1980s when Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter fought for the White House, I was really young. I can say I was 7 years old, and I was excited. And I remember I told my father, I want to stay up all the night to see the result of the election. And my father said, "Oh, come on, you cannot. You have to go to sleep because tomorrow you have to go to school. But I promise you that the first things I'm gonna say tomorrow when the alarm is set up, start ringing, I will tell you who will be the next president of the United States." So it's something that it's part of my life because my love for this country, for America, and for covering what's happening in America, has a sort of origin in that episode in 1980. I don't remember if I was for at the time for Reagan or Jimmy Carter, because when you're young, when you're so young, of course you are not for someone or the other one. You just like the name. I remember I liked saying Jimmy Carter because it looks like sounding very well. But also when I discovered that Ronald Reagan has a very good sound as well. So, Pap, who do I have to root for? And my dad said to me, "Oh, if you want to be a journalist, you don't you have to take you don't have to take side. Yeah, you must be neutral and try to understand." Of course, I was 7 years old. I don't I'm sure it's not the exact quote of what my father said to me, but this is when I really start thinking of being a journalist. So yeah, if I think about my life when I was a kid, I grew up in a very small village in the north of Italy, in Trentino Alto Adige, Dolomiti region. Just 3,000 people lived and still live in that village. Um, so we're a big community. We were used to talk about politics, about social issues, about sport. And was and I remember my dream has always been a journalist. So I don't remember being, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a scientist or other, just journalist. And I was, and so I thanks God, because I have to thanks God, thanks my parents that helped me to uh, to have the opportunity to study and the opportunity to start my career that I would say at the end, right now, it's taking me to Washington that, if you, it's really, for me, it's the top. I think I'm going to retire in Washington. I'm joking.
It's always so important to have people who can foster us, support our development and our interests. And I can certainly relate as somebody who always wanted to be a writer, right? I always wanted to be a writer, an editor in some capacity, and I feel very blessed and very fortunate that I've been able to do all of that, in addition to reporting, though editing is my forte. So supporting journalists is more fun for me than the actual reporting itself, but every journalist needs an editor, right?
Oh, of course.
Yes, yes. And I'm curious then. So you've been in the United States for a while, and how have your how have your opinions, and observations on the country evolved? How have they changed, in the time that you've spent reporting in the country for La Stampa?
Um, let me rewind a little bit. I was the first time I went to the United States was 1992. I spent, I guess, 30 days, 1 month, 1.5 in a college studying English. Probably was not the best investment of my life, as my English is not as good as I would like. But anyway, uh, and then it was just an experience as a student. And then I started coming to the United States almost 3, 4 times per year since 2001. So I visited almost 40 states in this country. I have a lot of friends. So when I moved here in December 2021 on assignment as a U.S. correspondent, I was really, uh, I knew at the time what to expect from the United States because I traveled a lot. I work here as a special correspondent, traveling correspondent. But your question is it's very interesting because if you are just someone that come here to cover the election I remember I covered Bush the election, Obama election. I came here for other stories. It's just a short or brief time. So you focus on the story you have to cover and you go back home. But when you live here, living here and covering stories, having the chance to cover President Biden, because it was the president when I moved here, or Secretary Blinken or electoral campaign as a resident correspondent, it's totally different because you really can understand what is America, what America wants, need, what are they requesting, what Americans people fear or love. And you don't understand this just covering politics, but also going to grocery stores, talking with the people, just taking the metro. Just I realized the first day I was here in 2021, I went to the metro because I needed to go somewhere. I don't remember for Pentagon City. The metro from where I live, it's just 5 stops. And I remember that was Sunday. Nobody was on the metro at the time. And I realized, okay, this is because of COVID, because of COVID. So that creates a shift, fracture between what America was before, the America I knew, and the American after. So it was something very important. So that also helped me to understand that I have to deal with this for the first 10 months, 1 year almost. I had to deal with this kind of America. Not everything was open. Press briefing at the White House was almost closed. Um, and and then, now it's different, but now you can really have a sort of a view of what Americans think. And the most important things, and what I try to explain to my readers, is you cannot consider America just looking at the skyscrapers in New York or in Manhattan. This is the view that most of my readers in Italy have. They are in love of New York. I love New York as well. I like very much. But if you consider that America is New York, you can't have a broader and deeper perspective and knowledge of what America is. And that is very important, because when we discover on November 5th, and election night, that Trump won, if you look at, I would say, many Italians newspaper and also European, they was, I would say, shocked, because many of them supported Kamala Harris, but also they didn't realize, because why? What's happened? Why America voted for Donald Trump? The answer is, I mean, it's not easy, but I would just try to make it easy in this way. Because America is not just New York. Because America is not LA. Because America is not downtown Washington, DC. It's different. So that is the part of my job I like, traveling and try to discover, to find out what happened in Idaho, in Oregon, and other state, in Kansas, or in Missouri. And you can really have a feeling that this is a wide country with many tribes. That's it, I would say. If I had the chance to write a book, I think the headlines, the cover of the book would be America and its many tribes.
I think that that's very accurate. I have spent a lot of time traveling within this country, and certainly outside of the country. And it's always very interesting, because I've also been asked that question many, many times. How could Americans, feel this way about this topic, whether it's Trump or whatever, right? And it's always like you realize that the country is the size of a continent. It's the size of a continent. And as a result, you have a host of, well, more than a host, right? But tons of different people of, different backgrounds and different opinions.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, and it's our job, as journalists, to sort of peel back, those layers, right? And just educate our audiences back at home. And I'd be curious in that respect to know, uh, how do you feel you have evolved as a journalist since the start of your career? It's so different, for example, to work in one media environment, right? Like working in Italy, for example, and starting out there. But you've had the opportunity to travel and meet people and also get to know yourself better. So,
Oh,
yeah, I'd like to know, like, how do you feel you've evolved as a person through the course of your work?
yeah, it's quite interesting, a very wide question. Um,
I try.
yeah,
Try.
it's the right question. I don't know if I really can answer in a good way, but I would say that when you start, I started being a journalist in 1998. The local reporter, I have a very great boss at that time that taught me, you have to do this, facts matter, and blah blah blah. But Italian journalism is a little bit different from American journalism, from Britain, Britain journalism. We have a sort of, we are very emotional people. We tend to have a sort of opinion sometimes, and I underline sometimes, have a sort of overwhelmed facts. We tend to have a sort of, we want to tell this story because we like the story. The facts are important, but also our opinion, our mood. So it's when I moved here in the United States and I look at how my colleagues worked, American colleagues and also international colleagues, I realized that they, most of them, I would say, had a sort of religious faith of facts. Fact matter. Most of everything. Doesn't matter which is your opinion. Doesn't matter which is the editorial view of your newspaper. This is the fact. And I said, okay, I want to do this. I want it to be accurate as much as possible. I don't want it to bend and say to my newspaper when they ask me something because they say, oh, probably Donald Trump is doing bad things. No, I don't want to say Trump is doing bad things. I'm just using the example. I'm not saying Trump is doing bad things or good things. I'm just saying Trump is doing things. And this is the fact. I want to report on that. I spent, as I said before, 10 years, almost 10 years as a foreign chief editor. So you have, in this capacity, you are part of the management of the newspaper. So you know very well what are the influence, the interference, the editorial line. So you have to choose the story. And when you choose or pick a story to publish on a newspaper, you made a choice. You make a choice. And also a political choice, I would say. Why a story is worth to be published than another one? It's a political choice. I'm not saying partisan, I'm saying political choice. It's important. That's matter.
Words matter. Yes.
Yes, words matter. But when I came here and I was on the other side of the on the other side, I said, okay, I have not to do anymore with this kind of choice. I'm just on the front line. I want to have fact. Can't double check everything and try to give my newspaper a real or the most accurate story. That's, if you ask me how I changed from when I started being a journalist, as a man, as a journalist, I really have today a sort of commitment to the fact that 4 years ago, 5 years ago, because of my other position in the newspaper, I hadn't. And this is important. This is important. I think this is the most exciting things. Not just write a story because you like writing a story, but you write a story because you have something to say, because you have facts, you have quotes, you have opinion from others, not from you. Of course, I have my opinion, but I told about my view just when I talk with my friends.
You are, and again, and sorry to, I sort of interrupted there, but you were making such valuable insights and observations. I think that you make an important point about this balance, right? Of course, there's, a difference between fairness and balance and, in reporting. But in this respect, I'm talking more about this balance that you have to strike as, like, for example, in your capacity as an editor, right? And knowing this is what we do. This is, these are our goals for a publication. What is it, what is it that we want to stay true to? What are the values that we want to adhere to while we're reporting? Yeah. And also, right, well, it is important, right? We all believe in taking pride in our work. We want to take pride in our work and being able to see a publication, in this case, grow, right? Grow and be seen as a trusted source of verified and valuable information.
Absolutely, absolutely. Trusted source is a key word.
Yes, yes. And I can certainly share that in my experience growing up, I really enjoyed diving into just really wonderful, right, fact-based reporting. Like, one of my favorite things to do is whenever I hear that there's some long form investigation, doesn't matter where it is, is it in the New York Times? Is it in the New Yorker? Is it in, a foreign publication, right? I read El País, for example,
Mm.
among others. So it's like, is there a 20,000 word investigation published somewhere? Then I want it. Send me the link. And on one hand, right, there's always some really wonderful writing involved, right? Just very arresting, really wraps the reader into the story. But on the other hand, you have such a wonderful opportunity in reading these stories to just see how meticulously and how passionately, right, these reporting teams, these investigative teams have worked, right, to put these stories down on paper. And that requires, just an enormous degree of discipline. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I'd love to know, right? Like, well, what would you have to say? Well, one, in response to that, and also, is there a particular story, some kind of investigative work, for example, that you're very proud of?
How?
I'm sure
Uh,
there are many. I'm sure. Yeah.
uh, yeah, it's not easy. You know, I have to deal with the reality. So we are from my newspaper here in me and a colleague from New York. We are doing our our best. We work really many hours per day in order to have a sort of good coverage, high quality coverage. Sometimes we can do, sometimes we cannot. We have some contributors for La Stampa that are based in New York and in LA that help us to do our job. But for us, for example, it's very difficult to have a sort of investigative, as you said before, reporting because it takes too much time, too much energy, and it's not what my newspaper and most of, I would say, European newspaper ask for correspondents that are based abroad. Uh, but of course, I am very proud about some stories I had the chance to cover, for example, because I remember I went 2 or 3 years ago, had a very long trip along the Colorado River. It was a time that Colorado was, the water in the Colorado River was really disappear sometimes in some place close to Arizona, for example. So I worked for over than 1 month on these stories, and I did with sources, with rapport, with people that are involved in the government and climate change issue expert. And then I had the chance to spend 5 days driving and driving along the Colorado River. And so I had to put together everything. And it was a work that I loved. And I would say that it's one of my best, not because it just was a good writing skill and with the atmosphere and no, because I had good sources, I had good facts, and every words, every line was double checked. And so I'm very proud of how I got that story. Probably it's not the most important story I have written. Of course, it's not. But the story I can remember very well because of the commitment, because the methodology, because of the energy I put to have the best outcome of this. So we say Colorado River, and also I'm proud. Sometimes I'm proud about some interview. I was not in the United States at the time, but I remember I had a wonderful interview in 2019 with Viktor Orban. So at the time, that is a prime minister of Hungary today and at the time. So it was a really big scoop because of that interview. I spent 4 hours with him talking. So I think there is many reportage, small investigation like Colorado River interview. I think what matter most is the passion and the power you put in this story. It's not just I want to do only investigation. I want to do only reportage on a war zone. I want to do only interview with big guys. No, it's you can have a great story or local story if you have the passion, the methodology, and the skills needed. So it's the approach. It's like I said at the beginning of our wonderful conversation that I was born and grew up in a mountain region in Italy. And what matters when you go to when you climb the mountains, it's not the goal, it's the process. It's walking is much more important than arriving at the end. It's why you walk that you need energy. Why you walk, you need a motivation. And of course, when you are at the peak, it's great. The view is wonderful, amazing. But it's walking that is important. It's like journalism. It's how you create your story. I mean, create, not making up, of course. How you create the story. Your approach is much more important than the result. Sometimes.
I think that that's great because again, right, we're talking about there's, you know, an enormous degree of discipline required for anybody who wants to achieve, right, a goal, whatever, you know,
Yeah.
whatever goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the case of journalists, I feel that this is very important, right, for aspiring journalists to know because, well, on one hand, they're, you know, they want to get out there, right? They want to get out there. But in order to start, and I really appreciate your point about local journalism, you have to realize that there are so many stories around you, right? They're literally all around you. They're everywhere. And you just have to have you just have to have the willingness, right? The willingness to
To
just
discover.
yeah, to look at what's in front of you. Of course, there's a lot of pleasure to be found and so many wonderful opportunities to be found when you have the opportunity to travel, right, to
Yeah.
other cities, other towns, other countries, right, like in your case. But in order to really remember what journalism is all about, I think that, and it sounds like you agree, right? There's such value in just talking, always talking to people, meeting people where they are, but just looking at the opportunities that exist right in front of your very eyes. You don't need to travel, you know, to parts unknown in order to find a really wonderful story.
Yeah.
And I think that you're making some very valuable points about representation, right?
Yeah.
Representation for the people around us. Um, I suppose on that note, to close this out, and I feel again, right, like you know, you've touched on a lot of this. We've touched on a lot of this in our conversation, certainly in your prior answer. But what would you say to aspiring correspondents who, of course, right, they want to get into journalism, but how should they approach, and what would you say to them about how should they approach working in the United States, right? Like what information should they come, you know, prepared with, armed with? And whether it's not the United States, right? What do you need in order to succeed and thrive when reporting in another country?
Oh, that's interesting. I think you must, I would say, really must erase your brain, cancel from your brain every prejudice. So when I moved in the United States, as I said before in my prior answer, I really knew this country because I was here. I spent a lot of time here before being assigned. Uh, and living here, I discovered that the perception I had when I was in Italy was a little bit different when I moved here. It's not in good and bad. It's not judgment. So if you want to be a correspondent and your dream is living in United Kingdom or in Germany, and you had the opportunity to be a correspondent in that place, I would say, okay, read a lot. Of course, you have to read because you have to know the culture, you have to know the history of the country. I think it's important. I usually say historia magistra vitae, as a Latins was used to say. History is something that teach you how the things work. So it's very important to know history of a country. It's very important to know the culture of the country. Uh, Culture, I mean, even sport and this kind. But you have to approach with this in a sort of candid way, without prejudice, without saying I want to judge your history, I want to judge your culture because I consider myself better than you, or just I have a degree in this, that. No, that is not how. You must be, you must be uh, put in a sort of condition to say, I want to be shocked, I want to be mugged by the reality. That's the way you can really uh, get something and tell the story, tell your story to your readers. So you have to have a good balance between knowledge, culture, history of a country you are going to cover, and be fresh, candid. Because if you supposed to be, I know everything, so nothing shocked me, nothing really struck me. It's not the way a reporter can work, because reporter must be shocked by something, must be touched by something, must be mug. I mean, mug in a good way. And you know what the neoconservative was used to say: a neoconservative is a liberal mugged by reality. I would say like that. A reporter must be someone mugged by the reality. Uh, that's what I would like to say to not just correspondents that are moving to the United States or another country, but also to the people that work for La Stampa and are younger, much younger than me. And sometimes I had the chance to talk with them, and they ask me, I wouldn't say advice, but they ask me, we would like to be a new correspondent in America. We would like to be the journalist that covering our prime minister, blah blah. They said, what do you suggest? Work, work, work. Don't look at your watch. There is no schedule, okay? But be curious, and never consider anything for granted. So open your eyes, open your ear, and then when something happens, the first question is, I wanted to find out more of what has happened. No, say, that is what a reporter should do.
I really appreciate all of these insights because, on the note that we're closing out on today, I think that you've made very valuable and salient points about the importance of self-reflection, right? Journalists need to self-reflect, let go of biases, let go of these prejudices, really
Yeah.
look at who they are, consider who they are and how they're approaching life, and consider what it is that they want to do. And that requires um, a wide degree of transformation. And it sounds to me like you've done a really wonderful job with that. So I
I
want,
tried. I know. I'm trying every day. I'm trying every day.
yes, yes, as am I. And oh my God, it's difficult.
Yeah, yeah.
But this isn't easy work, right? And nothing in life comes easy. So I'd like to just say thank you again, and I hope that our audience who's listening to us today really takes a lot from everything that you've shared today. And I'd like to thank you for being here with me on our Foreign Correspondents Talk Series 2025.
Thank you, Helen. It was a great pleasure to talk with you, and I hope your audience can really get something from our conversation.